Hey everyone, and welcome to Serenity Cinema, where we discuss everything in movies, television, and all things nerd.
What does that make us?
Big damn heroes. As always, I'm Austin.
And I'm Angel.
And we're glad to have you guys this week. So this week we're going to be talking about the DCEU and its future. Specifically, we're going to be looking at the Batman movies and all the movies that are related to the Batman mythos. So without any further ado, let's get started.
So yeah, we're going to start with the Batman, since that would be the main movie in this series. Currently, it's kind of in development limbo because Ben Affleck stepped down as director after some creative differences, but right now we know that Matt Reeves is directing, or he's supposed to direct at least, and he's done movies like Cloverfield, 10 Cloverfield Lane, the last two Planet of the Apes movies, so I don't know, he's a pretty good action director from what I can tell, so I think that he'll do pretty well with the Batman. I think like a mix of the elements of stuff like the mystery elements of Cloverfield and the action elements of Planet of the Apes will really work for this. So yeah, as far as we know, also the Joker is going to be in this movie. We don't know to what extent, but the other villains slated right now are Deathstroke and Scarecrow.
Yep, and this is all rumor because supposedly the script has been thrown out multiple times, but this is the latest rumors that we're circling about. As far as Matt Reeves, yeah, I agree with you. I think he's definitely got the chops to pull this off. I don't think anyone's going to argue that. It's really just a question of, is the studio going to get in his way of making a good movie? As they so often do.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I'm a little mad at studio interference lately, especially with the whole Han Solo thing, but that's a whole nother video. We can talk about that another time. So, what do you want? What do you personally think this movie's going to be, and like, what do you want from this movie?
Okay, well, first of all, I think this rumor for the villains is great. Scarecrow is probably my favorite villain, except maybe the Riddler. I want more of the action that we saw from Batman vs. Superman, obviously. I think everyone can get on board with that. I really want to play up some of the detective elements. So my favorite Batman movie is Mask of the Phantasm, because I'm a giant-ass nerd. And one of the best parts about that is that you get to see Batman's mind work. All of my favorite Batman comics all require his deductive ability. I just read a really interesting one that took place, and it's a what if Batman was around during the time of Jack the Ripper, and it follows his detective story. Really interesting. I think that's the best thing you can do with Batman. So maybe a mystery story involving something with the Scarecrow, the Joker's in play somehow, and also he has a badass fight with Deathstroke. Would be perfect. What about you?
Yeah, honestly, I agree with all of that. I'd love them to play up the detective elements because I feel like they don't really do that enough in Batman movies anymore. Like it's a lot of action, it's a lot of skulking around and everything. And what I honestly think they should do is like take a lot of cues from the Arkham games. Like I don't know if you've played those. I think you have.
I have played several of them. There's a reason they've won so many awards. They're the perfect tone. They make great use of the villains. The action in that game is fluid and wonderful until you get to the last one, and it's absolutely impossible. I know that's not an opinion everyone shares, but I find that there's a lot going on. But
what I think is they should take a lot of cues from those games as far as, like you said, as far as the action, as far as the detective stuff, as far as all of that. But I think that it's given me hope that they'll do that because they've included Deathstroke. Now, I don't know if you've played Arkham Origins. It's not any different from the first two games, really. Like the second game improved on a couple of things from the first game, but then, like, Origins was just another Batman game, and that's not necessarily a bad thing. I still liked the game, I still enjoyed it, and the story was really cool. And what the story was basically Batman is being hunted down by all of these insane, I think it's like 8 of them, like 8 different assassins, and one of them is Deathstroke. So I'm thinking like they could do something like that where maybe the Joker hires Deathstroke to kill Batman, something like that. I don't know how they'd factor Scarecrow into that, but there's plenty of ways. Maybe like Joker and Scarecrow are working together, something like that. But like personally, that's what I mainly want, is like the Arkham-esque action, the detective story, probably some flashbacks of like him before he quit being Batman, before like Man of Steel, because I think they're saying there was a point where he wasn't Batman, like before Man of Steel. I'm not sure.
I don't know if they've hinted at that or not, but I could see that fitting into the universe. with what was clearly the death of Jason Todd.
Yeah.
It makes sense. But so let me ask you, Angel, how do you feel about the inclusion of 3 villains? Because I know in the past with lots of movies that have lots of villains, it hasn't always worked, and people will cite that as a reason not to have lots of villains. So what do you think?
Well, the two main examples I can think of are really Spider-Man movies. Like, there's Spider-Man 3, which had a lot of villains, and there was Amazing Spider-Man 2, which had a lot of villains. So Amazing Spider-Man 2, I think it had Electro, it had Green Goblin, it had, like, Rhino for some reason, like, and it wasn't a bad movie. There was a lot in there. Like, I think the story was fine. It was just, they tried to do too many things at once. And that's exactly what Spider-Man 3 had done years before. They tried to do way too much at once by they not only set up, but they executed the whole Venom storyline. They tied Sandman into Uncle Ben's death, which I didn't think was bad necessarily, but I don't think it was necessary to the movie. I think that you still could have done that arc without it being like a big name villain. As far as the Goblin story, I think that fit in perfectly. So I think there's the thing that Spider-Man really did wrong with the villains was making the killer Sandman so that he could fight another superpowered villain. I don't think that was necessary. I think you could have just had it be his killer hasn't been caught yet and he goes after him. It doesn't have to be somebody that we know from the comics, something like that. So I think that if they can execute it correctly, I think 3 villains can work just fine. I'm not sure how these 3 villains will work, but I think that based on like how these 3 villains have worked together in other media, I think that it could work, definitely.
I do too. I think that it's a cliche, but one of the best parts about Batman is his villains. So I think this movie definitely could work. My only concern is, so let's look at Wonder Woman. We just did a podcast on it. Go check it out. Wonderfully successful, great movie. I think, and I say this in the podcast, what really makes it shine is that the character is at the forefront of the whole movie. It's not about themes necessarily. It's about this character, and they explore other things in it, which is not necessarily something the other DC films have done. And I think that's what really made a success. So I just worry that the focus is going to be taken off Batman the same way it is in, say, The Dark Knight. Again, a great movie, but Batman is more just a lens to see that through. I hope that we get to see some great Batman development and characterization in this movie, because I think it's sorely lacking in actually a lot of the Batman films that are out there. And again, that's where Mask of the Phantasm shines. I'll talk about that movie forever because it's great. But we won't, because we have to move on to other things. Let's move on to who we want in it. And I guess we're going to do this for each of these movies, but I guess the big ones that we'll tackle for this movie would be the 2 Robins, because we are going to talk about Nightwing later, so we'll get to that later. But Robin, Tim Drake, and Red Hood Jason Todd.
Yeah, I definitely have a few. I have a few thoughts on that.
Okay.
Yeah.
You want to start off? We actually have one of the same ones for Red Hood, so we'll save that. But
yeah. We'll save that one for last. So I guess we'll start off talking about Tim Drake. So I'd say I have a few different choices for Tim Drake. You need someone that's young and like cool, but he can also be funny and stuff like that. But you need someone that's clearly a lot younger than the rest of the Robins at this point. So I have a few different ideas, but my 2 top ones would probably be Logan Lerman and Brenton Thwaites. Now, Brenton Thwaites is a very new actor, so that could be a cool element, like bringing in a more new face, but he was just in that Giver movie a few years ago, and that was the first movie that he was in, I'm pretty sure. So he's like a relatively new actor. And Logan Lerman's been in plenty of stuff, so clearly he can act. Like, he was in Fury, he's been in some romantic comedies, he was in Percy Jackson, so he has a lot of range, so I think that he could definitely work. Well, what do you think?
I think this is a good question, because Tim Drake is my favorite Robin. So what interests me about Tim Drake is that he is by far the smartest Robin. He's an interesting, because in some ways he's closest to Batman. He's the detective. He's the finish the mission at any cost kind of Robin. Not to the extent that Damian is, because Damian will sacrifice his principles to get the mission done. Tim Drake is very much like Batman in that he's very principled, but it's about the mission in a lot of ways. He's the detective, but also he's the antithesis in that he has a family, unlike Dick Grayson and I believe Jason Todd as well. And of course Bruce Wayne. Their family is dead. he still has a family. So he's also far lighter in that respect. So I think you find someone who can capture that balance. And I love Logan Lerman. I do feel like my pet peeve is people who are like 30 playing teenagers. I really dislike that. So I would prefer there to be someone younger. But if I heard either of those actors were doing it, like I'd say give them a shot.
Okay, that's fair.
Yeah, and so yeah, for me, I don't have a specific choice. Just someone in their later teens, because the way I see it, you put maybe Batgirl's younger. Batgirl could be older, whatever. Nightwing's got to be like in his late 20s, I would assume, mid to late 20s, based on how old Batman is. So if you want him younger, late teens is a good place to go.
Another thing I wanted to ask you about, I had this thought recently about another idea. Like, you were talking about the balance of someone who can do, like, action and, like, dark stuff, but can also be, like, light and funny. I was thinking, what about the guy from Kingsman? I think it's Taron Egerton. I think that's his name.
Here's an embarrassing truth. I've never seen that movie. So
You've never seen Kingsman. I just saw it I just saw it a couple months ago when I was in London, and it is awesome. It's definitely, like, I thought it was going to be weird and, like, campy, but it's like that, but, like, turned up to 11 in the most amazing way. You trust me, you have to see it, and I think you'd agree with me. Like, he would also be a really good choice for Tim Drake.
Oh yeah, it is a movie I want to see. All right, yeah, like I said, I give him a shot. Sounds like a good call. And let's go on to Red Hood, because we both have the same person, and I'll be honest, I don't know if he could really if he really has the acting chops, because he is a TV guy. I don't know of any major films he's been in. Maybe you do, but we both put Colton Haynes on our list.
Yeah, Colton Haynes, because here's the thing. I think that he captured, like, he can definitely do, like, both anger and, like, funny lightheartedness. And, like, Red Hood is super dark, and he's, like, funny in the most disturbing of ways a lot of the times.
It's a dark humor.
It's a really, really dark humor, the way that the way that they usually portray him. But I don't know. I think he would work well, and he's breaking into more movies lately. He hasn't, like, starred in any movies really, but he's done movies recently. So I feel like if they wanted a relatively new face to the movie world, but also a face that people will know, because he's been on stuff like Arrow, so, like, DC fans know who he is.
Yeah, and he was great. He was really unfortunate great. He left. I'm glad he's come back into the acting world, because I know people liked him on Teen Wolf. I didn't watch Teen Wolf.
I do watch Teen Wolf, and I loved him on Teen Wolf. He was a great character. He had a very similar arc to what he had on Arrow. Like, not exactly the same, but, like, same kind of thing where, like, he's struggling with who he is, he's very angry, and then, like, he moves into a better understanding and everything. Like, so I think that he could definitely do the evolution of the character in a great way.
Yeah, and I think that Roy, while not the same character, he's got some of the same beats. You know, he's a damaged character.
Yeah.
And he goes through some stuff, but he's got this complicated relationship with his mentor. I think that he has the experience, and also we know who he is he's an actor. When he's a character, we know what that kind of character is going to be. So I think that would fit into the role really well.
Yeah, same.
All right, so
yeah, I think that covers
question mark.
Yeah, I guess. Do you want to start this one?
Yeah, I mean, just the concerns that I have with any movie that goes through the kind of purgatory this movie's going through, where it loses scripts, it loses directors. Even Ben Affleck there were rumors that he was going to step down, and you really can't lose him. Like, he's one of the, now that we have Wonder Woman, obviously people are more on board with the DCEU, but before that, Batman might have been the only thing that certain people were on board with, specifically Ben Affleck's Batman with this DCEU. And if you lose that, if you recast Batman right now, that's about as bad as it could get, I think.
Granted, I think that movies that are in development hell can still work. Like, Deadpool's a great example. Deadpool was in development hell for years, and it turned out to be...
sentence, but...
No, it's not. Definitely not. And there's other movies, like, I can't think of any examples off the top of my head right now. That's just a big example, and it works because it's a superhero movie, too. Like, I think it's the way that the studio's going about it. Like, they want to go in a specific direction, because what I heard initially was that the script that Ben Affleck wrote was actually based on the Hush storyline. I don't know if you know that one.
I'm familiar with the character of Hush. so I know what he's about. I haven't actually read the Hush comic, though.
I have. It is really good, and it's got a lot of crossover between different characters, not just in the Batman universe, but in like the DC universe in general. Like the Joker is in it, Nightwing is in it, I think, Superman is in it. Like there's so many different characters that are in it, so you could really have a lot of crossover with the rest of the DCEU in that if you wanted to. And I personally would have loved a movie like that, and I think that's part of the reason he left was they wanted to shut down that kind of storyline. So my concern is, again, like with studio interference. I think that the studio should let, like, if a director has a specific vision, especially a director as good as Ben Affleck, you know, he's done stuff like The Town and like Argo and things like that, like award-winning. He's like an award-winning director.
He's a good director, yeah.
So
he's good at what he does.
Yeah, so I think they should let him. I think that they should have trusted him more to create a really great new kind of Batman story that also really caters to the fans in a but in like a really good way, you know. And I think that's my main concern is is Matt Reeves going to direct this? Because I mean, don't get me wrong, Matt Reeves is great.
He's got an impressive slate.
He's got an impressive slate, but as far as I can tell, I don't think he's done any superhero movies before.
He hasn't, but also I would add that he has done these bigger movies, and I mean, well, I don't think Cloverfield Lane was a terribly large budget, but it's part of a larger franchise, if you will, and the same with the Planet of the Apes. Those are big budget part of a franchise, and they're good movies. He had a vision, he went with it. I think he knows how to work with these. What was the word I'm looking for? These people in charge of the franchises who want to take control from the directors. He knows how to work with them to get a movie that is still his own and still works.
Yeah.
So I'm confident that if the movie execs loosen up a little bit, this could be a very good movie.
Yeah, same. Yeah. I'm still excited for the movie, don't get me wrong. Like, I'm still very
it's a
excited.
Batman movie.
It's a Batman movie. Who's not excited for a Batman movie? But I mean, like...
Even if it's just 2 hours of the warehouse scene, that would be fine.
Yeah, I'd be okay. I'd be cool with that. Yeah. That would just be great. But yeah, anyway, so I guess now we should move on to the rest of the movies that are going to be in, like, the sort of Batman anthology series.
All right, yeah, so... Let's look at the breaking news on this one is Batgirl, a movie coming from Joss Whedon, former Marvel director, big guy in the MCU, moving over to the DCEU, wants to direct Batgirl. And from what I can tell, this is because I think that they approached him and were like, what would you like to do? And he said, Batgirl. That's the vibe I've gotten from the research I've done.
I have not heard that, but I could definitely see that happening. I actually heard he's been very cordial about it and everything. Like, he asked Marvel permission, because technically, like, he's not in contract with Marvel anymore, but the last superhero movies he did were Marvel, so he actually asked, can I go work at DC? Is that cool with you? And I love that. I love how, like, proper he is about everything.
Yeah, that's good. I do. Oh, man, I feel so bad. He was so broken.
Yeah. He after Avengers 2, he quit Twitter, I think, right?
Oh yeah,
After
he did.
That,
he was done for a while, and now he's back. But he didn't do anything for like a few years.
I think the last 2 years, like really since Age of Ultron, he really hasn't done anything. I mean, he's done like little things on the Shield.
Yeah, he's executive producer on Shield, and he's been working on a project he just revealed that's going to be I believe it's a period piece horror movie, World War I or World War II, I can't remember.
I did not know that.
And of course, Batgirl now.
Yeah, obviously Batgirl. Yeah. I didn't know about the horror movie though. That's it. I'll definitely watch that.
Oh yeah, I'm interested. I mean, he did Cabin in the Woods, which is of course a subversion of the horror, but it's still pretty great. I actually just watched that for the first time recently.
I haven't seen it yet.
It's pretty
funny. I really
funny.
need to.
And it's basically like, have you seen a Joss Whedon movie? This is the cast again. Chris Hemsworth is in it.
Franz or something like that. Like the guy who played Topher on Dollhouse is in it too.
Yeah, that guy is in it as well. The woman who played the doctor on Dollhouse is in it. She's a scientist again.
Amy Acker.
Oh right? yeah, Amy Acker. Yeah, it's a Joss Whedon piece, which actually brings us to who we want in it, and that's actually funny. Who do you think? So before we get to who we want to play Batgirl, who do you think might show up from the Joss Whedon family, or who would you think would be fun to show up? Because let's face it, he's definitely going to pull in people that like from his group, that he always picks and chooses from.
He could pull in anybody.
He was hoping for Nathan Fillion finally in a movie, other than that small Guardians of the Galaxy cameo he had.
No, you forgot about the Guardians of the you forgot about the cameo in Percy Jackson.
Oh yeah, that's not a superhero movie. That's not an MCU or DC.
That's, if you just meant in movies in general, because he really hasn't done any movies either. He's been doing Castle for what, 10 years?
I think it went on for like 8 or 9 seasons. Yeah. Yeah. So let's hope that he finally gets his chance to shine. Who knows? He could even play like a really cool villain or something. That'd be an interesting fan cast.
That would be awesome.
What villain could Nathan Fillion play?
He could play literally anybody. Although I've always wanted Nathan Fillion to play Booster Gold, so I think he should be. I think he should be Booster Gold in the DCEU at some point. Whenever they decide to go that route.
Alan Tudyk is Blue Beetle.
Ooh, Alan Tudyk. Alan Tudyk could either be Ted Kord or he could be Skeets, which is the. I think it's Skeets. It's a little robot that follows Booster Gold around. Booster Gold,
yeah, that's true. But I would just.
He could do the voice of that. That would be amazing.
He's a great voice actor, obviously. So that would be really interesting.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, that's cool. Okay, so for the actual Batgirl character, who do you have in mind?
I have like a bunch of different actresses in mind. I've heard a few things just from like stuff that I've heard, like rumors that I agree with and like stuff like that. Things that like I've talked to other people about that they've said, oh, this person should play that. So it depends on what route you want to go. So I know there was a rumor a while ago that Lindsay Morgan, who plays I think Raven on the 100, which is on the CW, is actually in line to play Batgirl potentially, and she's a good actress. Like I've only seen a little bit of the show. Like I've seen a couple of seasons. It's on like season 4 now or something. But I think that based on how she is on the show, she definitely has the attitude to play Batgirl. I'm not sure how many movies she's done, so I'm not sure if she'd want to do that or like. Or whatever. Another rumor I heard is that there's someone who actually wants to play Batgirl, and that's Priyanka Chopra. She was just in Baywatch, but she has been on the Quantico TV show for the past 2 years, and she's a great actress. And it would actually be cool because she's an Indian actress, so like that would add a lot of diversity. And I think with Joss Whedon, he would absolutely do it. There'd be no problem with it.
Yeah, and the only thing I can think of, well, obviously fanboys would cry out about that, whatever. I don't really care.
But who cares?
Certain fanboy. I am a fanboy myself, and that doesn't bother me. When I get to the Nightwing cast, I'm sure you'll see what I mean. But
yeah.
We do have Commissioner Gordon already, and he's played by J. Jonah Jameson.
Well, we don't know what his wife looks like either.
That's true.
And there's also continuity where
she's wasn't like, who cares? It's a fictional universe. Just
I don't care.
Just the same. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I don't care. Yeah. Yeah, but that's most of my thoughts. Another one I heard that I was actually talking to my mom about this. She's a huge comic book fan in general, and like she's a huge Batman fan and like Batgirl fan. And she was actually saying Catherine Langford from 13 Reasons Why would actually be a really good choice because she's a new face.
I haven't gotten around to watching that yet, but
it's a really good show. It's a really good show.
It's so popular. That would be a big, not necessarily stunt cast. Like, but that would be a big, get attention to this kind of
Exactly, yeah, because, like, honestly, she's played, like, she can do, like, the sarcasm of Batgirl, I think, like that, like, she can be, like, the nerdier aspects of Barbara Gordon, too, so, clearly, I think she could play the character very well. And the only other actress that I would really say that I think could play Batgirl, because I think she can do anything at this point, is Tatiana Maslany. She's on Orphan Black right now, which is about to finish up, and is she the lead? She's the lead. She plays like 1,000 different characters, and she is phenomenal. She could literally play any role. I absolutely think she could be Batgirl, and that would be amazing. Like that is my casting, and that is my preferred person out of everybody. I would love her to be Batgirl.
Okay. Personally, I've seen that Joss Whedon said something about wanting an unknown, possibly, and I would be okay with that, because I'm not sure how old I want Batgirl to be. Do you have thoughts on that? Because obviously there's the idea of she has a romance with Dick Grayson, and if that's the case, we're probably going to want someone a little older, and maybe she was Batgirl as a teenager, this is her coming back into the cowl, but I also really like the idea, especially with Joss Whedon doing it, of a more Buffy-like storyline where she's a teenager, maybe more in line with the way I envision Tim Drake being in these upcoming movies, if he's in them. I like that idea a lot as well. So, preference on which way they should go with age?
I'd say youngest like 21, like youngest like late college age, and
Okay.
then oldest like 28, something like that. Like I don't want her to be like in her 30s because I always the way I always envision Batgirl is like either 16 or like somewhere in her 20s, something like that. So I think like youngest maybe like 20, 21, and then like at the oldest maybe like 28. That's where I prefer to go with that.
Okay, so somewhere a little bit between what, in my mind at least, the way Nightwing and Tim Drake Robin would be.
Exactly. Because I imagine Nightwing's probably going to be like either late 20s or like early 30s, like at the oldest maybe like 32.
Yeah, that I like on the younger side for their like 28 or something like that. But
Yeah, I'm thinking like 28,
that's
something like that. Because again, like he's a mature character and simultaneously he's a very immature character, which I love.
Yeah.
So I think like the perfect age of the capture set is about like 27, something like that.
Yeah, exactly. That's the perfect age for like you're an adult, but also you're completely lost in life.
But also you're the opposite of an adult.
Yeah, you're an adult, but you're the opposite of adult. That's perfect.
Exactly. Kind of like
Oh,
how
man.
we'll be forever.
Yeah, hit that a long time ago. No, not really. I haven't gotten to the adult part, but I'm really set on the opposite of adult part.
Yeah.
I've been practicing that one pretty much since I was born and was not an adult, a child.
Well, do you know how many people call me an adult and I'm like, I'm not an adult. I'm not even close to it at all.
Sometimes I'll answer the phone and people will be like, "Sir?" And I'll be like, No, don't call me that. It makes me sad.
Exactly, same thing. Like I've had people call me sir in passing, like move out of the man's way. I'm like, which man? Is he standing behind me? Like I don't know.
Please, man was my father.
Call me boy man.
Yep, roll with it. Keep going. So what do we want from a Batgirl movie?
Well, I mean, before we move on to that, do you have any casting ideas?
Oh no, not really. I'm not great at the casting thing. I agree with the idea of an unknown. I think would be great for this. So that's my approach. As far as story goes, I would want to see something more hero of the people idea. So
Hero
Batman,
of the people.
yeah, you have he saves, like Batman, you have the big story. He saves Gotham from being poisoned by someone, whatever. He fights the big villains. He's got all that great stuff. I want to see Batgirl a little more on the street with people. Maybe not. Obviously, you gotta have a villain in it. And I'm sure it'll be one of the classic Batman. But I want to see more of a champion of the people, and I think that's the approach they've taken in her comics recently. Is that she's more. Batman's the one who's like flying around, taking out these world-ending plots by Penguin and all of them. Batgirl's a little more closer to the ground, a little more helping people out. So I want to see that approach. I want to see a smaller scale movie where Batgirl can be triumphant.
That I can agree with. That I would be down with.
And almost, obviously, you're probably going to have Batman in it, but almost devoid of Batman. I want her to shine on her own. We've got the gist. We know who Batman is, so we've got the gist of where she's coming from. Let's learn about Batgirl. Let's learn about
her as a person. Let's learn about Barbara Gordon. Yeah, I agree with that. Like at the most, maybe like a cameo at the end where he shows up, like a Nick Fury. Or like a thing like they did in Wonder Woman where like he appears but only in an email, like something like that.
Yeah, I wouldn't mind if like there was something. So a cool idea I always like it when they do the crossovers is like Batman is handling the crisis and Batgirl is doing the side quest. So there's a comic I really like in an arc I really like in Detective Comics. This was by Francis Manapul and Brian Buccellato, which are my two favorite artists / writers in comic books. And part of the thing, it's a story about anarchy and all the computer files get wiped out in the city. So Batman is, of course, trying to save lives and he's trying to take down anarchy, but they keep referencing a Batgirl side plot where she is trying to restore these computer systems. And I like that idea of the greatest story never told kind of mentality, or
Yeah.
like the Zeppo and Buffy, where there's something huge going on, but this character we're looking at is doing something equally amazing and equally important, but it's just smaller scale. So it's not the kind of thing that is necessarily always getting the spotlight, but it's just as important, and let's focus on that.
I would definitely agree with that. The way I was thinking about it was like similar to that, but like less of like an emphasis on she's a champion of the people, exactly. Like definitely make her more of a street level hero than Batman is, because I mean Batman really should be a street level hero logically, but he's also like he's a member of the Justice League. He's
he's larger than life at this point.
He's saving the world, but like I think that maybe have it be about two different things. Have it be about her legacy, because she's Commissioner Gordon's daughter, but he won't let her be. In most cases, he doesn't let her be a cop. He doesn't let her join the GCPD, even though she wants to. Like she wants to help people that way. So she becomes Batgirl instead. But in a lot of ways, she also winds up with another father figure that she's living in the shadow of, which is Batman. So I think the movie should be a lot about her moving out of the shadow of Batman and into becoming her own person. Obviously, she would still be Batgirl. They're not going to change her name or anything, or her costume to like reflect an entirely new change in the character. But I think that showing how she personally overcomes being in the shadow of both her father, like proving to her father that she can take care of herself and do everything that he does, and proving to Batman that she can work on her own and be be just as good at it as he is, or as like Dick Grayson is. I think that would be a really cool story arc to go with. As far as like what villain I want them to use, I don't know. I mean, maybe like a smaller villain, maybe like some of the maybe like I don't know, maybe like Harley Quinn or something like that. But I don't know if they do that because she's getting her own movie too. So I don't know. Well, but like
what I think this would be a great place to introduce would be potentially Poison Ivy.
That would be cool. I was just thinking that too, actually.
I have two reasons for that. One, she's going to be in Gotham City Sirens, so there's connective tissue there. And
True.
Two, because the person I want to play Poison Ivy is a Joss Whedon favorite, and I think that he would definitely cast her. So let's move on to Gotham City Sirens, Pat. Unless you have any last thoughts you want to say on Batgirl?
No, again, like, honestly, I don't have any concerns on Batgirl or anything. Like, I think that Joss Whedon's going to do a great job. I think he's going to write a great script. I think that they need to not do what they did with Avengers Age of Ultron. Like, don't get me wrong. I love Avengers Age of Ultron. I do. I love it. I don't really think there were that many problems with the movie, but it broke Joss Whedon because they were, like, choking the creative life out of him. Like, there were so many things that he wanted to do, but they said, okay, we have to get this done, we have to get this done, we have to get that done. And I think he made it work in the best way a director can, but at the same time, you need to just let him work. He's a great director. Let him do what he wants to do. That's the only concern I would have is, again, studio interference. Leave the director alone. Let him write the movie. Let him do what he wants to do creatively. Let him cast who he wants. Don't interfere. He's going to make you money. You don't need to worry.
Yeah. And it's, I would say as far as concerns, obviously he's done Buffy, and that's a classic. That's a cliche classic at this point as far as feminist works go. Like, they teach courses on it in college. It's huge. And I think he's still got that in him, but I also know as of recently he hasn't necessarily been that same person who wrote Buffy. The storyline in Age of Ultron, again, I like Age of Ultron. I don't think it's as bad a movie as people give it credit for. I wouldn't even call it a bad movie. I'd call it pretty good, but the Black Widow story it's not great. And if you've read the Wonder Woman script that he wrote a couple of years ago that leaked online, that one's not great either. As far as, well, the story, a separate thing, but as far as the feminist approach that, he claims to be a champion of in it, I think he's definitely capable of it. I just hope that he moves on with the times a little more, and we see something that is just as awesome as Buffy was. Definitely, I'm not worried, but I'm hesitant.
I was just talking with my friend because we went to see Wonder Woman, and we were talking about Joss Whedon's Wonder Woman script, and like it is. I didn't even realize it was that bad until last night when I was talking to my friend about it. Like, it's the one thing I will say that was also years ago, so I think that he's definitely starting to evolve with the times, which is why I think he will do a good job as far as this goes.
Yeah, I think he's really going to put his heart and soul into it. I think that there's going to be great. And he's done great things in the past. Even going to like lesser known, he did the X-Men comics for a little while. He wrote Astonishing X-Men for he did a pretty long run. I want to say it was a couple of years. And Kitty Pryde was one of the forefront members, which is, if you know anything about Buffy, you'll know she was one of the major inspirations for that character. And she's a great character in that thing. He's got it in him. And I think that without too much studio interference, which, fingers crossed, he'll come out with something really great. So now let's go on to Gotham City Sirens. If you're good with that.
Now we can go into Gotham. Yeah, we can move on. So Gotham City Sirens.
Know? Well, what do we know? Do we know things? Not really. Basically, it's going to have Harley Quinn, Poison Ivy, and potentially Catwoman, because those are the Gotham City Sirens.
Yeah, well, but basically, the Gotham City Sirens basically mean the major female characters in Gotham City, which are really those characters. There's maybe a couple others, but those are like the main three that people really think of. I'm specifically talking about bad guys. I'm not talking about like female heroes. I think overall, like, these are the three villain characters you think of when you think of Gotham City Sirens. So I think that doing a movie surrounding three of them would be great. I actually recently heard a rumor about Black Mask being the villain, so I think that would be pretty cool. Because I like...
that'd be interesting. I'd almost like him in a Batgirl movie, actually.
I would like him in the Batgirl movie, too, because here's my problem with it. Black Mask is a really cool character. He's got a lot of really great potential, and they used him in the Under the Red Hood movie, but I don't know why. I feel like they will never use him as the main villain in a Batman movie. I think that they could use him in one of these, but like even when they used him in like spoilers for anybody who has not played Arkham Origins and still wants to. There's major spoiler right now. So even when they had him as the villain in Arkham Origins, he wasn't actually the villain because it was the Joker in disguise. So
Shocking.
like they don't ever really.
Joker's the main villain.
Yeah, but it's one of those things, like, they said, okay, Black Mask is going to be the villain. This could obviously be before the Joker shows up. That would make sense. And then they just completely subverted that by making the Joker the villain instead. Not that I really have a problem with that. It's just more like, I would like to see Black Mask do more. That's all.
He's an interesting villain because he's somewhere in between, like, the camp comic book villains that Batman faces and, like, the mob boss regular villains that Batman faces, you know?
Exactly. He's a really great cross between the two.
Yeah. So I'd be interested in seeing him, honestly, in any of these movies. What do I want? I want but in my opinion, they're going a little too weird in some cases for these movies, but I like the idea of Gotham City Sirens because I like what it could be, which is basically what I had hoped Suicide Squad would be. And this is bad guys doing good on a smaller scale. They're still being bad, but, you know, they have a good outcome. They're trying to overcome their demons. And I think this is a great place to do the Harley Quinn storyline real justice. I think this is a great place to explore the duality of Catwoman, because that's great. And also we have a chance for Harley Quinn and Poison Ivy relationship, which is a canon thing in the comics. So
that's exactly what I want too.
How awesome would that be? So let's hope that's what I would like to see.
Yeah, like, because if you really think about it, like, Harley Quinn's character, she's a damaged character. Like, her relationship with Joker is a terrible, abusive relationship and in a lot of ways, she is a victim of the Joker.
Well,
and she's really trapped in this. And I think Poison Ivy is what really could move her away from that damaged relationship into not necessarily a healthy relationship, because Poison Ivy is also a bad guy, but into a better relationship for both of them. Like, into a relationship that is healthier, at least compared to the Joker, and where they both care about each other, and they actually both care about each other, and they actually both respect each other.
Yes.
And that is exactly what Harley Quinn is is starting to become in the comics, and what I think people need her to be, because she's such a popular character now. I think that she would be showing that evolution. And Margot Robbie was actually talking about it. I'm pretty sure what she was saying was she's actually working with the creative team on Sirens to move Harley away from the Joker storyline and into the romance with Poison Ivy, into a healthier relationship.
Yeah, and so, I mean, just not to hammer the point too hard, but, you know, representation in the movies, you know, it'd be nice to have. I know there's like this trend now in movies where it's like, oh, we have our first explicit gay moment or our first openly gay character, and that's a moment like in Beauty and the Beast where a guy dances with a guy for like 2 seconds, or where the James Gunn with Guardians of the Galaxy 2, he's like, oh, Manta's meant to be gay. And it's like, no, if you don't make if it's not actually said, if you just make one joke where she's like, I'm not into Drax, and like, well, maybe it's because she's not into guys, that doesn't count. That's not it. This would be the perfect place to have it. And you could make so many great points with this movie. And that's why I really think this movie should happen, and I am excited for it. And also same. Because of who I want to be in it. Damn, check out that segue. All right.
Okay, yeah.
So I mentioned this before.
We already know who Harley Quinn is. So we already know who Harley Quinn is. So who do you want to be Catwoman?
Catwoman? I want actually both of my two casts are both Joss Whedon favorites. For Catwoman, I want Morena Baccarin. I think that she's got the look. I think that she has the acting chops, and I think that she is in the right kind of range for. She and Bruce could have, had something when they were younger, and now it's, she's a little older again, and that's it would fit. It would make sense chronologically. So I think she would be a great choice for it.
Yeah.
And also she's already on Gotham, so that's like a neat little Easter egg kind of thing. I don't know what I'm saying.
I know what you mean, though. I know what you mean, and I agree with that. I think Morena Baccarin could do it. The thing is, as far as my casting goes, like, she's definitely got it. My main choice would probably be Emily Blunt, just because I love Emily Blunt. I think she's an amazing actress, and she has incredible range, and she could do so many things. Like, clearly she could do like the action stuff that we saw like in Edge of Tomorrow, and then she can be like funny and flirty and stuff like that, because she was in the Adjustment Bureau with Matt Damon a few years ago. Like, so she has a lot of range. I feel like she could encompass all of the different parts of Catwoman, including that duality part that you were talking about before.
I think you're right. And then as far as Poison Ivy goes, I have Summer Glau cast. Can you tell I'm a Firefly fan here on Serenity Cinema, casting Morena Baccarin and Summer Glau? Talking about Nathan Fillion and Alan Tudyk. I think that Summer Glau would be perfect for it, because she's got that level of creepiness to her. I think that she could play the great Batman villain, but also, she's a very human character, and we could get that human side of her. We see her start as the villain, and she and Harley could go on this journey together to reaching the healthier place. So that's someone I would like to see. What about you?
I like Summer Glau. I like her on the shows that I've seen her on. Like, she was on Firefly. She's done other appearances on other shows. Like, she was great on Arrow a few years ago, back in season 2. So my casting, I have two main casting choices for Poison Ivy, which would be Jessica Chastain and Yetide Badaki from American Gods, and there's two different reasons for it. So I think Jessica Chastain, she's done a lot of really great roles. She was in A Most Violent Year, which was this mob movie with Oscar Isaac a few years ago. Very great movie. She was also in the Huntsman movie and stuff like that, so she can clearly do like action scenes and things like that if we need her to. But I don't know. One, I think she has the look. Two, I think she could pull off like the seduction aspects of Poison Ivy, but she can also play a really great character. And I think if you want to do the character a little differently, and you wanted to have like really emphasize the seduction aspect of it, and like the sort of tortured soul aspect of it, Yetide Badaki plays like the goddess of love on American Gods, and I think she was only in a few episodes, but she pulled it off amazingly. So I think if you want an unknown in that role, if you want to diversify that role a little bit, I think it could really work casting her too. But honestly, my top choice right now is Jessica Chastain.
Okay, I think that the most important part is going to be chemistry with
exactly.
Harley. With oh man, I just forgot the actress's name now.
Margot Robbie?
Margot Robbie, thank you. With Margot Robbie, so I really think that that's what it comes down to. You put them in the movie, or you put her in the audition, whoever you want, you see how the chemistry goes, that's where you pick it off of.
Yeah.
Because that's going to have to be the emotional center of the movie, and then also you have Catwoman on the side doing her own thing kind of idea.
Mm-hmm.
So, all right, let's move on. I think it's safe to say, other than studio interference, we don't really have any concerns for this one.
Yeah, I mean, I think that with with Margot Robbie, like the way she portrays the character of Harley Quinn to me is absolutely perfect. So I think that if she's kind of got the reins on some of the creative side, I think that the movie is going to be great.
Okay. So let's move on to our final DCEU Batman-centric film, and that is Nightwing, which I actually I didn't realize was pegged to get its own movie until very recently. I don't know how long this news has been. How long has this news been out?
It was announced a few months ago, but there hasn't really been much movement on it, except that Chris McKay, who directed the Lego Batman movie, is going to be directing this movie. And I think that as far as, I don't know if anybody's seen it yet, so I don't want to spoil anything, but as far as the story of the characters goes, it's very comedic, but it's also, there's definitely a very clear and very great story arc that I think gets to the center of Batman. So I think that he could definitely pull it off if he does, like, he could definitely pull off the humor of Nightwing, and he could also make it a little more serious if he wants to. So I don't know, I have faith in that. That's as far as that's the only news that we know right now. We don't know who's cast. We don't know if it's going to be him in Gotham or him in Bloodhaven. We don't know anything yet. So
yeah. So well, that's a great transition. What do you want? Because personally, I want to see him in Bloodhaven. I think that Gotham, by the time we've gotten through Batman and all these other movies, I think Gotham, we're going to have a pretty good idea of it. I want to expand the world a little bit. I want to see him moving on. I'm a sucker for like a coming-of-age story kind of thing, and even though he's already going to be older, the idea that he's finding his place in the world is always, that story arc is always interesting to me, so that's kind of what I would like to see with this movie.
Yeah, and in a lot of ways I think it could be very similar to what I want from Batgirl in that way, where it's like, he's coming into his own, but he's also like, Batgirl's going to be in Gotham, literally living under the shadow of Batman. Like, I think Nightwing is very much like, he has issues with Batman, so I want flashbacks maybe that really show us what their exact issue was in this universe, why he left, and kind of reveal that throughout the movie. And I also want to really emphasize like how different he is from Batman in how he saves people. Like, Batman is very brooding, and like, in a lot of ways, he's scary. Nightwing's not scary. Nightwing is a nice guy. Like even if he pops out in the middle of the night, like, chances are you're going to be a lot more comfortable when you're you're going to be a lot less afraid of the big person saving you if it's Nightwing rather than Batman. Just because, like, for one thing, he smiles. Like, I'd love them to emphasize that in his character. Like, show how he's just as good as Batman at what he does, but he is so incredibly different from Batman.
Oh yeah, exactly. It really is interesting how he's everything. There's a note of he's everything Batman can't be, and in some ways, Batman is what he can't be as well. They're interesting foils for each other, and so I do want to see them together, but I also want to keep Batman's role maybe limited because, again, I want these characters to get a chance to shine, and I don't want them to be overrun by someone we already have a pretty good, like, we pretty much know Batman at this point. Let these other characters take a turn. And the person I really want to see take a turn as Nightwing is Steven Yeun from The Walking Dead. Is that how you say it? I honestly am not sure, but
I think it's Steven Yeun. Yeah, I'm pretty sure. I'm not 100% sure.
So apologies if it's not, but let's just call him Stevie for the rest of the podcast, just in case. So
let's not do that. Let's just call him Stephen.
So Stevie is great on The Walking Dead because, well, he was. Sorry, but so one great thing is now he's free to be on a movie. But he always balanced that light and dark to me. He always walked that line, which I thought was interesting. Was no matter how bad the circumstances were in the show, which is terrible very often in that show, he was always hopeful. He was always the one who was like, this is who we are. We're the good people in this world. He was able to crack a smile, crack a joke. I think that he's the right age. He's got the look. I think that if he was cast, he'll have the right physicality. I think, he'll get to work on that. And I think that he really just embodies who Nightwing is. And not to mention a little diversity wouldn't hurt them. So personally, that's my thought.
I can definitely agree with that. I've definitely heard a lot of fan casting. Like, the top choice is Steven Yeun, and I love Steven Yeun on The Walking Dead. I feel like he embodied in a lot of ways the everyman in in the Walking Dead, because like Rick is a cop and like everybody else has like some kind of job. Everybody feels like they have some kind of job that makes them somewhat useful during the apocalypse. And I'm pretty sure he was a pizza delivery guy. Like he was just he was a normal guy, but he was also one of my favorite characters. But I'd love to see like my dream casting would personally have been Joseph Gordon-Levitt, who, if anybody's seen the Dark Knight trilogy and they've seen the Dark Knight Rises, they know that he kind of almost played Robin, and that they were kind of implying that he was going to become Nightwing, and obviously that didn't happen. But personally, I think that he could pull off the sarcastic, funny aspects of Nightwing, and he also pulls off like the very like action oriented, like, and also like kind of the do the right thing hero complex thing of Nightwing. I love that. And if obviously they cannot cast him, so I think my second choice would probably be Aaron Taylor Johnson, who played Quicksilver in Age of Ultron, and he also played Kick-Ass in the Kick-Ass movies. I think that he would be really great too.
Yeah, actually, honestly. I guess he would work pretty well as well. He's a good actor. Yeah, he's done the action. He was also in Godzilla.
He was in Godzilla, yeah. I didn't really watch much of that movie, but like I remember turning it on like HBO or something, and I saw like, hey, look, it's Kick-Ass. Yeah,
it's that guy.
It's that guy that I know. See, to me that was cool, but like overall, I think that he, like, in the Kick-Ass movies, he plays a very nerdy character, but then I saw as Quicksilver, he was also able to play like a really cool, like big, strong, serious character who was also kind of sarcastic. Like, I feel like the way that they embody Quicksilver is kind of just like a slightly more smartass way of embodying Nightwing, and I love that. And so I think, honestly, my top choice would be him right now.
All right, I could definitely get on board with him. It's a good call.
Yeah.
So, and yeah, that would about wrap it up for those 4 movies. So yeah, those are the movies that we know about already and our thoughts on them. As for the future, I don't know if you have any ideas, Angel, but personally, my thoughts are just, I want to see movies that just exist in this Gotham world of the DCEU. I don't need to see direct sequels necessarily. Like, I don't need to see Batgirl 2, The Batman 2. I just want to see more movies that follow these characters in this world, and that are all kind of interconnected, almost like its own subsection of the DCEU. Do you have thoughts?
Yeah, I mostly agree with that. I think that as far as like the smaller characters go, like Batgirl and Nightwing and like Red Hood, if they make a movie about him, I don't think they necessarily need to give them their own like movie series. Don't get me wrong, I would love to see like a Batgirl movie and like they do a whole trilogy and then it ends in Oracle, kind of like how Wolverine ended in Logan, sort of like that. I would love to see that. But I mean, like, as far as most of the characters go, not really. The only thing I know is logically, they're probably going to do a Batman trilogy. There's probably going to be Batman 1, Batman 2, Batman 3 at least. Yeah. If not even more movies. Because I mean, look at the one that started off with Michael Keaton's Batman. There were different actors, but there were like 4 different movies in that series, and they were still going to keep going until they decided, yeah, we're not going to do that anymore. And then we got Batman Begins a few years later. Like, chances are they're going to make more of these Batman movies. I would like them to, I don't know, like maybe just, as far as the smaller characters go, yeah, I would agree. Maybe just give them their one spin-off movie, have them appear in other Batman movies, have them cross over in movies like with each other. You could even do like a Nightwing and Robin movie. That would be cool.
Mm-hmm. I think that, I think that it would be great to have, like, the same way that they do in the DCEU, you could have a Batman Under the Red Hood story. I know you had said that's something you'd be really interested in, and you could do other movies that are similar to that instead of, like, the Batman 1, the Batman 2, the Batman 3, and that way you have you don't have to necessarily follow a trilogy sequence. You can just have, like, these movies in this world, and I think that would be really cool, and something that's not really done, because even in the MCU, we have the Iron Man trilogy, we have the Captain America trilogy, we have not quite the full Thor trilogy yet, but that's kind of what they do. And I think that would be really interesting to see some movies that are standalone, and some that just are maybe spiritual sequels instead of direct as we know them sequels.
Yeah, sure. Like I definitely love to see like movies maybe surrounding other characters. Like I love the idea. I do love the idea of villain movies if they're executed correctly. So like there's so many different kinds of characters in Gotham City that you could really do that with a lot of stuff. One of the ideas I even had was I don't know if you've ever read Gotham Central, the comic book series.
I'm familiar with it.
Yeah, well, basically it follows different members of the major crimes unit, and like I have thoughts on like who I'd want to be the main people in it, who I'd want to cast, and like honestly, I'd love that as a TV show. But if they did want to make like a movie surrounding the police department, I think that would be interesting because that'd be a whole new type of movie that would just it would not necessarily be a superhero movie, but it would look at superheroes from a different angle, and they've never really done that in movies. They've really only done that in like TV shows. So I think doing it in the movie would be a really interesting idea, and it would definitely set the DCEU apart from the MCU.
I think you're right. Yeah.
Because I mean, I doubt the MCU would ever do anything like that.
No, probably not. They have their brand, and DC, if they want to diversify, if they want to stand apart, then I think that that's a really great way to do it. So yeah, so I think that brings us to the end of our discussion about the Batman section of the DCEU. We'll probably do a follow-up and talk about some of the other movies that are coming out. Flash, Aquaman, those kinds of things. Justice League, of course, is the next big one. So stay tuned. We'll have more podcasts in the coming weeks about a variety of topics, actually. So if you liked this one, like, subscribe, check out the rest of our channel. We do a lot of video essays, and like I said, we're going to have a lot more podcasts coming, even have guest stars on sometimes. So, Angel, is there anything you want to say before we head off? Maybe where they can find us?
Yeah, I mean, so we are on a bunch of different types of social media. We're on Twitter at Cinema Serenity. We're on Instagram as Serenity Cinema 1. We have all of those, and we have our own Facebook page. All of those will be linked in the description below so that you can follow us, like us, and subscribe and everything. And honestly, I would just say, let us know in the comments below what you guys want to see. We're going to be doing a bunch of different podcasts in the next few weeks on a bunch of different topics, but we'd also love to hear what you guys want to know about. Like what movie news, what TV news, what comic book news, what characters you want us to talk about. So just let us know in the comments, and we'll do our best to address as many of them as we can.
Yeah, we're new, and we could really use the support. Give us your support, and we'll give you the best material we can possibly do. So, hope you enjoyed, and hope that you come back, and hopefully next week when we have our next podcast out. So until then, see ya. Bye.
Bye.